Greetings everyone, welcome to the channel. In this Diablo 4 video, we're going to be going over the full patch notes for patch 1.1.0a, which is for all platforms. This is going to be the Season 1 update, the really big update before Season 1's release here on July 20th. So here we go. We're going to start right off the bat. New unique items and legendary aspects. New unique items and legendary aspects have been discovered in Sanctuary. Use them to enhance your characters in the internal or seasonal realm. These unique items can be obtained from World Tier 4, and the legendary aspects can be obtained from any World Tier. So there is 6 new unique items. Avron Spear of Lycander, Uber Unique Staff, World Tier 4. Gain a random shrine effect for 10 to 20 seconds after killing an elite enemy. Can only occur once every 30 seconds. That's going to be for all classes. Developer notes: Avron Spear of Lycander is an extremely rare drop. We wish you luck in recovering it from the armies of the Burning Hells. Next up, we're going to talk about the new Barbarian unique, which is the Azarath unique sword. On lucky hit, your core skills have up a 20% chance to freeze enemies for 3 seconds and deal 0.75 to 1.5 cold damage to them. Moving on to the Druid, which is the Flesh Render unique one-handed mace. Debilitating Roar and Blood Howl deal 0.5 to 1.0 damage to nearby poisoned enemies. For the Necromancer, they got the Lidless Wall, which is a unique shield. On lucky hit, while you have an active Bone Storm, hitting enemies outside of a Bone Storm has a 5 to 25% chance to spawn an additional Bone Storm at their location. Each of your active sacrifice bonuses increase the chance by 25% and the total number of additional Bone Storms you can have by +1. For the Rogue, they got Eagle Horn, which is a unique bow. Penetrating Shot has a 30 to 80% chance to fire an arrow that bounces off walls and scenery. Hitting enemies from behind with Penetrating Shot will make them vulnerable for 3 seconds. For the Sorcerer, they got the Oculus, unique wand. Gain the effect of the Teleport enchantment for free. When you evade using Teleport enchantment, you are taken to a random location. Developer's note: the Azarath and Flesh Render unique items have a flat damage effects which scale with power. For example, at 820 item power, Azarath deals between 3,359 to 6,718 damage. So you definitely want to be on the lookout for the Azarath and the Flesh Render unique items, as they do have higher power which scales with your level, with the item power level, which is very nice to see. Moving on to the new legendary aspects. These are going to be the general ones up first, then we'll move on to the class specific ones. Audacity, which is a utility aspect. When there are at least 5 close enemies, stun them for 2 to 4 seconds. This can only occur once every 20 seconds. Moving on, Craven, which is a mobility aspect. You gain 20 to 40% increased movement speed when moving away from slowed or chilled enemies. I think that would really work very well with the, they're the boots, man. I can't remember the name of them, but they leave a trail of frost in your wake. I feel like I could see some really good synergy between those 2 items. Moving on to the Barbarian, Ancestral Charge, which is an offensive aspect. Charge calls forth 4 ancients who also charge, dealing 50 to 100% of normal damage. For the Druid, we got Subterranean, which is an offensive aspect. Poison Creepers active also cast Landslide in a circle around you. Earth skills deal 10 to 20% increased damage to poisoned enemies. For the Necromancer, we got Gore Quills, which is an offensive aspect. Blood Lance will consume blood orbs to also conjure lances from them. Each additional Blood Lance deals 20 to 50% of normal damage and prioritizes targeting unlanced enemies. For the Rogue, we got Pestilent Points, which is an offensive aspect. Every third cast of Puncture is poison imbued with 100 to 150% of normal potency. For the Sorcerer, we got Searing Wards, which is an offensive aspect. After spending 200 to 100 mana, your next Firewall is free to cast and will destroy incoming small missiles. For bug fixes, for accessibility, made various improvements from an accessibility perspective, primarily mainly fixes to the screen reader where it had failed to read specific elements. Moving on to challenges. Fixed multiple issues where specific challenges wouldn't provide the proper rewards or could not be completed. Fixed multiple issues where certain challenges could not be progressed through unintended means. Fixed multiple issues where players could gain progress for certain challenges through the actions of other nearby players. Fixed multiple instances where activities that should not count towards the criteria for some challenges were not counted. Fixed an issue where players would not receive notifications for when one of their friends completed a challenge. Fixed an issue where feats of strength were not accounted for when calculating challenge completion percentage. The feats of strength final slayer of the first mother now requires you to slay the level 100 pinnacle boss solo. The silence of the hellish challenge remains unchanged. Fixed an issue where the feats of strength, one of the first and the earliest experience, did not display all the titles they rewarded. For cooperative play, fixed an issue where the camera wasn't functioning properly when players were far apart in local co-op. Fixed an issue where NPC conversation boxes would overlap if multiple local co-op players talked to the same NPC at the same time. Fixed an issue where Rogue's inner sight would only fill up for one of the players in a co-op session. Fixed an issue where the Dark Potential Challenge would be granted to both players when either player completed it regardless of the player's progress. Fixed multiple instances where quest progress would not properly synchronize or quest progression could be blocked for local co-op players. Fixed multiple issues that occurred during cutscenes for co-op players. For dungeons, fixed an issue where the player would not be able to receive enough animus to progress through the hallowed ossuary dungeon. Fixed an issue where the stone carving in the Fallen Temple capstone dungeon would duplicate. Fixed an issue where the monster regen affix in a nightmare dungeon would also affect structures in that dungeon. Fixed an issue where the Goatman and Shambling Corpse enemies would continuously respawn in the Forsaken Quarry dungeon. Fixed an issue where Sentinel enemies would not have the weapon of the Bastion of the Faith dungeon. Fixed an issue where the Bastion of Faith dungeon could sometimes not be completed. Fixed an issue where the player could respawn behind a barrier in the Fallen Temple capstone dungeon. Fixed an issue where the map of the Crusaders Cathedral dungeon was incomplete. Fixed an issue where the Curse of Indolence and the Curse of the Weak would stack even while the player was dead in the Fallen Capstone dungeon. Fixed multiple instances where the Fog door could not be progressed through in some dungeons. Fixed an issue where the Monster Throne affix in Nightmare dungeons was reflecting physical damage. It will now properly reflect non-physical damage. Fixed an issue where the Blood Boils would not properly spawn in the Core Dragon Barracks dungeon. Fixed an issue where traps would deal more damage than intended. Fixed an issue where item scaling in the level 100 Pinnacle dungeon was inconsistent. And finally, fixed an issue where the Awakened Glyphstone would not spawn if the party leader left the dungeon before the dungeon was completed. Moving on to gameplay fixes. For the Barbarian, fixed an issue where number of enemies to defeat for the Barbarian class quest Master's Battle was not displayed. Fixed an issue where Iron Maelstrom could be cast more than 3 times rapidly casting Warcry. Fixed an issue where stacking the Berserk, Ripping, Skullbreaker, and Anemia aspects would allow the player to deal extreme amounts of damage. Fixed an issue where the outer edge of Quakes granted to the Hammer of the Ancients via the aspect of Ancestral Echoes was dealing far more damage than intended. For the developer notes for these changes, we recognize this adjustment is significant decrease to Hammer of the Ancients Barbarian build, but we do not want its strength to be reliant on an underlying bug. Moving on to the Druid. Fixed an issue where Earth skills and the Pulverize skill would consume 2 overpowered buffs simultaneously. Fixed an issue where the bonus effect on Blood Howl from the Night Howler's aspect would apply twice to Wolf Companions but not to all for Ravens. Fixed an issue where Provocation passive stacks wouldn't update properly after adding more points to it. Fixed an issue where the automatic transformation from Insatiable Fury would cause Ursign's Strength key passive to not proc consistently. Fixed an issue where the enhanced Pulverize buff would not remove itself while in town. Fixed an issue while Seeking Tornadoes produced by Storm Chaser's aspect would not deal damage. Fixed an issue where Raven's passive damage did not improve after the skill was upgraded. Fixed an issue where Rabies would deal no damage while standing very close to an enemy. And for the last change to the Druids, fixed an issue where Stormclaw's aspect allowed Shred to do extreme amounts of damage. Moving on to the Necromancer, we only have a couple of changes for this class. Fixed an issue where Necromancers could not obtain daggers from the Purveyor of Curiosities. Fixed an issue where the Necromancer's minions would have their life bonuses deactivated while in town. Fixed an issue where Bone Spear cast through Chilling Wind from an elite enemy would increase the number of generated echoes for that cast. Fixed an issue where the enhanced Bone Spear could cause erratic movement. And finally, for the last change for the Necromancer, fixed an issue while canceling Blood Mist when it's already off cooldown would immediately recast it. For the Rogue, we have a couple of changes. Fixed an issue where Shadow Step wouldn't trigger the aspect of Uncanny Treachery if the target was killed. Fixed an issue where Advanced Penetrating Shot would knock down other players in PvP play. Fixed an issue where Twisting Blades would not come back when the ability killed a Bloated Corpse Fiend enemy. Fixed an issue where the dash skill would not move the full distance if targeting an enemy while using a controller. Fixed an issue with the Eldritch Bounty Paragon node granted bonuses resistances incorrectly. Fixed an issue where Rapid Fire had an extra arrow VFX that behaved erratically. Fixed an issue where the Awakened Glyphstone would not spawn for rogue players using Improved Barrage. For the Sorcerer, we do have a lot of changes, so I'm going to try to breeze through these relatively quickly. Fixed an issue where the Firebolt enchantment did not affect, fixed an issue where the Firebolt enchantment effect did not contribute to the Combustion key passive. Fixed an issue where the passive stacks generated by the Align the Elements could partially reset in an unexpected way. Fixed an issue when casting Deep Freeze would prevent the Ice Shard's enchantment effect from triggering. Fixed an issue where the aspect of control was applying its damage bonus 3 times for staggered bosses. Fixed an issue where the gravitational aspect was appearing weaker on two-handed weapons or amulets. Fixed an issue where enchantment effect for Chain Lightning had no visual tracking bonus and could also unexpectedly drop off. Fixed an issue where Incinerate would also immediately cost 30 mana when cast in addition to the consistent channeling mana cost. Incinerate now properly only costs mana as it is being channeled. For general fixes, fixed multiple instances where the players could unnaturally teleport during boss encounters. Fixed an issue where the chest in the Western Ways could not be interacted with infinitely. Fixed an issue where the Urman NPC could not be interacted with in certain situations. Fixed an issue where otherwise breakable objects in the world would not have been broken when evading through them. Fixed multiple instances where the player could avoid damage from bosses if they position themselves in a specific location. Fixed an issue where forged relics could not be interacted with. Fixed an issue where monsters with a cold, bleeding, burning, or corruption affix would freeze players in one hit in nightmare dungeons with the cold enchanted affix. Fixed an issue where cold enchanted monsters froze players more often than intended in higher world tiers. And finally, fixed an issue where a chest could spawn that would provide infinite loot. For Helltides and the Field of Hatred. Fixed an issue where the player could be damaged by the Helltide Firestorm while standing in Durandai. Fixed an issue where enemies resurrected by shamans would continuously drop aberrant cinders in Helltide events. Fixed an issue where Chain Lightning could bounce infinitely between the caster and other player characters standing in the Field of Hatred's town. Fixed an issue where Crackling Energy could hit other players in Fields of Hatred town. We know, shocking. Fixed an issue where players could not see other players they should see when re-entering the Azul Fields of Hatred zone. Fixed an issue where certain areas in the Field of Hatred would be incorrectly flagged as town, rendering players unable to cast skills while still being able to be damaged. For items and aspects, fixed an issue where the cost reduction bonus from the Ring of Starless Skies could be unexpectedly drop off. Fixed an issue where the aspect of the Protector would trigger its barrier effect after destroying a breakable object. Fixed an issue where the Ring of Misfortune had incorrect stats. Fixed an issue where the Ember Staff weapon didn't apply the bonus damage to crowd control enemies, which is inherent for all stave type weapons. Fixed an issue where any character menu interaction would reset the bonus granted by the Inner Calm aspect. Fixed an issue where maximum life affix on the Mark of the Conclave quest item was scaling improperly. Fixed an issue where aspect power would also increase when upgrading an item at the blacksmith. The level requirement for sacred items will now cap at level 60. The level requirement for ancestral items will now cap at level 80. Fixed an issue where the Mother's Embrace unique ring did not trigger properly with several abilities. Moving on to monster changes. Fixed an issue where items of higher power than intended were dropping from rare monsters. Fixed an issue where warg's jumping attack dealt no damage when passing through the player. Fixed an issue where pitless Gur monsters would endlessly run around in circles. Fixed an issue where the lightning enchanted champion Goatman would fail to deal damage to the player. Fixed an issue where monsters with the suppressor affix would be immune to damage from abilities that started initially outside the immunity circle. EX, when a barbarian started a whirlwind cast before getting within proper range of the suppressor monster. Fixed an issue where clones of a monster with the suppressor affix could also have the suppressor affix. Fixed an issue where treasure goblins would behave erratically if initially engaged from a long distance. Fixed multiple other issues with monster behavior, could not perform properly, and it could be exploited in some cases. Moving on to quests and events. Fixed an issue where the progression bar could not fill during the Caravan Under Siege event. Fixed an issue where the putrid remain enemies could remain idle during the Defiled Ground event. Fixed an issue where champion enemies could not spawn during the Ancient Obelisk event. Fixed multiple issues when using traversal could cause elite and boss monsters to disappear during multiple events. Fixed an issue where Radiant and Greater Radiant chests would not spawn when completing the Fearful Bones event. Fixed an issue where the Cursed Chest event could not be completed. Fixed an issue where the Defiled Ground event in Hawazar would have a respawn point much further away than intended. Fixed an issue where unique drowned enemies spawn during events and the Forgotten Coastline could be invulnerable to damage. Fixed an issue with the suppressor monster's affix. Effects would be active on containers and furniture inside the dungeon during the Romance quest. Fixed an issue where the player could not teleport through the Ancient Gate and block progression during Storming the Gates quest. Fixed an issue where progression could be blocked during Flesh and Bone quest. Fixed an issue where quest dungeons did not reset if the associated quest was abandoned. Fixed an issue where the quest tracker would be missing if the player re-entered the game during Picking Through the Bones quest. Fixed an issue where not enough monsters would spawn to fulfill the requirements for completing the Hungering Necrolytes cache quest. Fixed an issue where an enemy was missing when progressing through the Lost Archives dungeon during the Legacy of the Magi quest. Fixed an issue where Immortal Inscription could not be read during the Agony of Bones quest. Fixed an issue where the player character could not face to speak to an NPC when initiating dialogue for multiple quests. Fixed an issue where Ghost Body of Bakura could remain visible after being defeated in the True Potential Rogue class quest. Fixed an issue where outside party members could influence the progression of the Bad Blood quest. Fixed an issue where the player could be blocked from re-entering the boss area after dying during the boss fight against Elias in Piercing the Veil quest. Fixed various other issues where quest progression could be blocked. For user interface and user experience, fixed an issue where the minimap didn't accurately depict the game world during the Blind Eye quest. Fixed an issue where the map was incomplete for the Loch Rath region in Scotland. Fixed an issue where the portion of the map was invisible during Exceller Terrace dungeon. Fixed an issue where the Mad Bomber title would not be a display for enemies encountered through the whisper of the same name. Fixed an issue where articles in the newsfeed could not be opened using mouse and keyboard. Fixed an issue where you have cross-network play. Enable message was being sent to chat each time a campaign quest objective was completed. The Cult Leader Paragon passive no longer appears above hostile minions in PvP. Fixed an issue where the bonus from the ballistics aspects displayed +0 to skills instead of +2 on the bonus bar. Fixed an issue where sigil sorting was inconsistent between inventory and the stash. Fixed an issue where the social tab on the action wheel editing window would not be skipped when navigating on controller. Fixed an issue where the amount of gold would not be properly display when trading gold in large quantities. Fixed an issue where item comparison numbers would be inaccurate if the item in question had a gem socketed that granted a stat that was also present on the base version of that item. Fixed an issue when images would not properly load in the newsfeed on the main menu. Fixed multiple issues with map pin functionality. Thank God, man, I've been waiting for them to fix that forever. Fixed multiple issues where quest and whisper markers weren't displaying properly. Various improvements to the consistency and clarity of messaging, skill description, and tooltips. Various other UI and UX improvements. For miscellaneous fixes, fixed an issue where the completion music for defeating Avarice could start playing before the boss was defeated. Always confirm your kills before celebrating Wanderers. Fixed an issue where players couldn't send battle.net friend requests to friends playing on console. Fixed an issue where the players could confirm if hardcore mode was enabled after logging in with a new character. Fixed an issue where players haven't unlocked a higher world tier could be invited to a higher world tier party. Fixed an issue where players couldn't transfer leadership of a clan. Fixed an issue where the sender of a party invite would not be informed that the invite failed due to incompatibility with the campaign prologue progress. Fixed an issue where Nafan's spear would duplicate during the cutscene if the player picks it up. Fixed an issue where Mashif's camel made no noises. Fixed an issue where there was no sound when Lorith kicks Mashif awake. Various other improvements. For loading screen updates, we've added more dynamic loading screens with the release of Season of the Malignant. This includes adding more assets to the loading screen, such as your player character. For gameplay updates, for general fixes, Altar of Lilith unlocks are now account-wide. Oh, thank God. Oh my goodness, I am so happy to see that. You guys have no idea. Oh my gosh, map discovery is now account wide. Yes, you guys have no idea. I've created 5 characters, and every single time I've had to rediscover the same Altars of Lilith and the same map discovery, because it would just go back to normal, man. It would be all fogged up. I wouldn't know which altars I've completed. It was total pain. Thank God for that. Whispers will no longer reward sigil dust. Overall loot quality has been significantly improved for silent chests. That's a really good one, because there was really no point in getting those whispering keys before to open those chests. It was just totally worthless. The channel time for leave dungeon ability has been increased from 3 to 5 seconds. That's going to hinder people a little bit when they're trying to do dungeons on repeat. We have generally reduced the tendency for many monsters to move around in combat, so melee characters don't have to chase down their enemies as much. Added PS5 DualSense Edge wireless controller support for PC. Renown value adjustments. Side quest renown rewards values increased from 20 to 30. Dungeon renown rewards values increased from 30 to 40. That's really nice to see. Developer note: this change is retroactive, and the additional renown gain will be applied to characters who have already completed side quests and dungeons. So that means if you've done all this on one character and you have another character and another character, it's going to be account wide now, which is very, very good to see. For world tier changes, World Tier 2 has had the following bonuses added. Bonus gold increased from 15 to 20%. Monsters now drop 15% more items. That's always good to see, because how it was in the beginning is you just play on World Tier 1 because World Tier 2 didn't give you any additional drops or any better items, but now that they're giving monsters drop 15% more items, that means it might be more beneficial to level in World Tier 2 instead of World Tier 1. Leveling, scaling inside dungeons and most overworld territories has been adjusted in World Tiers 3 and 4. Monsters will begin to trail behind the player in level after a certain point, up to a maximum of 5 levels behind. This change does not affect the world bosses, Legion events, Fields of Hatred, Helltide, or Nightmare dungeons. We want to give players a better sense of their power progression and mastery over the world while still challenging them with structured endgame activities. So here's a World Tier 3 example. If the player's level is below 55, the monster's level is 55. If the player's level is 56 to 60, the monster's level is 55. If the player's level is 61, the monster's level is 56. If the player's level is 62, the monster's level is 57, etc. From this point, the monsters will always be -5 until World Tier 3's max monster level of 70. For a World Tier 4 example, if the player level is below 75, the monster's level is 75. If the player's level is 76 to 80, the monster's level is 75. If the player's level is 81, the monster's level is 76. If the player's level is 82, the monster's level is 77, etc. From this point, the monsters will always be -5 levels. For experience, reward experience for completing Whispers in World Tier 3 and 4s has been significantly increased. This is a developer note for this change. We have observed that the experience bonus rewarded for killing higher level monsters escalates too fast when compared to relative challenge involved. We still want to reward players for taking on this challenge by encouraging them to participate in power leveling together instead of one player killing enemies while another party member waits at the dungeon's entrance. We are adjusting bonus experience from rewards from killing monsters that are higher level than the player. Pre-season of the Malignant bonuses were 1 level higher was 15% bonus experience, 2 levels higher was 20% bonus experience, 3 levels higher was 25% bonus experience, and here are the post-season of the Malignant changes. 1.5% bonus per level up to 10 levels. So an example is the enemy is higher than you by 1 level, you're going to get 1.5 experience, 2 levels 3% experience, and 10 levels 15% experience. So that is going to kind of suck. It's going to make it a little bit harder to level up, but I'm sure we're going to find ways to blast through the levels, no problems. We're also adjusting experience rewards for monster level offsets for higher world tiers. Current world tier level offsets, world tier 2 up to 3 levels higher, world tier 3 up to 10 levels higher, world tier 4 up to 100 levels higher. We're changing this to world tier 3 up to 3, which is unchanged. Sorry if that was world tier 2. World tier 3 up to 6, and world tier 4 up to 10. For example, you are level 1, your friends bring you to a world tier 4 and leave you at the entrance of a dungeon. They start killing level 100 monsters. Prior to Season of the Malignant, you get the level 100 monster XP times the 1 plus 25%. So that was why players were getting to super high levels without really having to do anything. After Season of the Malignant, you get level 11 monster XP multiplied by 1 plus 15. So yeah, that's a good change. I can definitely see why they did that. For Helltides, we're looking into increase the danger in Helltide's risk-reward gameplay by making monsters a bit more challenging and the tortured gift of mysteries harder to open. Helltide monsters are now 3 levels higher than the player instead of 2. The tortured gift of mysteries chest has had its cost increased from 200 to 250 aberrant cinders from 175. That kind of sucks. That means that it's going to be a little bit harder to open up multiple chest of mysteries during Helltide events. All interactable objects in Helltide zones have a small chance of dropping aberrant cinders. For balance,